Remember how I told you a couple of days ago that CNN was crowing about how Joe Biden had done such an amazing job in the State of the Union, that 65% of the people watching gave him a favorable nod for his performance? Well, remember how I told you that that was actually the lowest number ever in the 25 years that CNN has been polling people immediately following the State of the Union address? Well, as it turns out, I was spot on. Yeah, I caught that big lie before it got too far down the road, in fact, because today I can tell you, looking at every single post-speech poll that Joe Biden got, no bump at all in the polls, nothing. In fact, some polls show him losing ground, believe it or not. And in every single battleground state, Donald Trump is winning. And if the election for president were held today, Trump would win the White House. Republicans would hold on to the House by a slightly larger but still slim margin and possibly pull to a 50-50 tie in the Senate and maybe squeak out a majority with 51 or 52 seats. West Virginia already going red, that I can tell you. And any other seat from any other vulnerable Democrats in Ohio, Montana, Arizona, even Michigan could swing the upper chamber red. So why is there no bump for Joe Biden? Presidents always, and I mean always, get a bump coming out of the State of the Union address. It happens every single time, but not this time. Not for Joe Biden. So the question is, why not? Well, the only answer is policy, or the failure of policies, more accurately. Americans of all backgrounds, all races, all religions, all education levels, every single demographic in the country is showing a shift away from Democrats and their elderly standard bearer, and it comes down to one failed policy after another. It's just that simple. Look, if Joe Biden was delivering like another old man, a guy named Santa Claus, maybe he would be winning. But Joe isn't delivering anything good. Nothing. About the only thing he's delivering right now to millions and millions of Americans is disappointment, anxiety, fear, and not fear of Republicans like they're trying, but fear that Joe Biden could actually win again. That scares people to death. One of those failed policies that everyone sees and hears and talks about every day, of course, is the wide open southern border, a place that is letting in all kinds of people that are never vetted before they get gift cards, cell phones, and tickets for the next flight to the heart of America. It means that communities are struggling to find places for these people to sleep, eat, and just survive. And now there are bigger problems popping up. Like a once eradicated disease, measles, it's back and spreading at shelters for illegals in the city of Chicago. And trust me, people living there, not impressed. Listen.
Tonight, as more migrants arrive at the city's landing zone, public health officials say they're being screened and offered measles vaccinations. This as the number of infections continues to grow at this Pilsen migrant shelter, where drop-offs of donations reveal a current of desperation.
They're taking action by vaccinating them. They're taking action by screening them, but we're a little bit too late. We should have been doing this from the beginning.
Officials confirmed 3 new measles cases here, bringing the total at this shelter to 7 in less than a week, prompting the arrival of CDC officials who are providing guidance on monitoring symptoms, shelter quarantine and isolation practices, and the shelter vaccination campaign now underway across the city.
CDC has provided vaccines for the response as they need, and technical support, laboratory support as well.
To create more space for quarantine, the city says some migrants are being moved to unnamed hotels. More contagious than COVID-19, an infected person can spread measles to up to 90% of people close to them who aren't immune.
Oh, that gives you comfort, doesn't it? They're spreading them out to hotels all over the Windy City. Of course, we've all heard about Laken Riley and all the other Americans that have been killed at the hands of illegals that have poured into the country. We've heard stories about terrorists making their way here to lay in wait to form sleeper cells that will attack when the time is right, we're told. But what about black-hearted deviants? The old-fashioned kind of evil that exists from time to time. What about that? I mean, I'm certain some terrorists have gotten in. We all are. We'll pay a price for that, a steep price someday, but there's more to the story. Here it is.
You may find the details of this story disturbing. A woman accused in Mexico of several murders and body dismemberments, even removing victims' hearts, is arrested in El Paso. And within the last 10 minutes, ABC7 obtained this arrest photo. She is Michelle Angelica Pineda, also known as La Cheli. She was wanted for 5 murders in Juarez. She's also suspected of being involved in several other killings. Investigators say she crossed illegally into the U.S. and was operating on behalf of the gang Artistas Asesinos, or assassin artists. The FBI says Pineda was known for extreme brutality, dismembering bodies, removing hearts, and placing the hearts in front of Santa Muerte statues. Authorities say they found guns, machetes, and fentanyl, as well as other drugs at the motel. El Paso's FBI says several law enforcement agencies worked together to arrest Pineda at an El Paso motel.
This is what you get when you let in everyone. You take it at their word. Hey, I'm just here to seek asylum. And yes, you heard that right. We let a full-blown serial killer into the country. She walked in. Thankfully, she was caught. But how many more? How many more are out there? I mean, how many serial killers are there on average for 10 million or 15 million people that come in illegally? Probably more than one. It's a question I'd like answered. I bet it's a question you would like answered too. And when it comes to the policies of this administration, there's not one that I can point to and say, well, at least they're doing a nice job over there. Not one. And instead of putting you and the country first, the Democrats still continue to push funding for Ukraine as the biggest, most important priority right now. Can you imagine? With everything going on, these fools tell you it's Ukraine that's more important than you. Here it is.
And we cannot allow Vladimir Putin to succeed in Ukraine, as it will undermine America's national security interests and that of the West, NATO, and democratic allies throughout the world. We'll see what happens. I think the clock is ticking, and we have to get the bipartisan national security bill over the finish line before we leave town next Friday, March 22nd. Before we leave town.
Can you imagine? Last night in America, think about this. Something like 40,000 homeless veterans slept outside. There's a couple feet of snow in Denver. There's some homeless vets there that slept outside last night. 400 or so of our fellow citizens died from fentanyl poisoning. And Jeffries thinks our best investment is $100 billion more to Ukraine. Really? I beg to differ. And so do a lot of people.